Okay, so there's a story I want to tell you about a young man who grows up in a house with a very difficult circumstances. The dad is a drug addict, the mom is an alcoholic and a drug addict. There are 8 kids in the family, but he's the only child from these two parents. And the mom loves the Bible. She's very much a person who reads the Bible and has faith. And there's a lot of dysfunction, obviously, in the family. But this young kid, for whatever reason, we can get into that later, grows up and just knows that what he's seeing in front of him is not the way he wants to go. And he talks about it. He says, well, I don't know if it was, a little bit of God, a little bit of common sense. He said, I just never wanted to be like that. And he grows up and is a very successful musician these days and has a child himself, and clearly has sort of broken the cycle of what his parents were doing and has forgiven them. But you look at that scenario and you say, what is it that put the thoughts in his head to help him get past everything he was seeing around him? All of the circumstances around him were against him. Gave him an example of what not to do, but he chose and he knew better than to go down that road. Grace is available to all of us. The Christ is available to all of us. The truth of man is available to all of us. Now, obviously, I don't believe there's anybody in this particular arena who's come from any kind of dire circumstances like that. But when we let the human circumstances outside of us that we're looking at determine what we think about ourselves, determine who we are, we're doing the same thing if we do that. And we sort of giving you the example in the extreme makes it really obvious. He just knew. Well, you know that phrase in the Bible, I know the thoughts that I think towards you, saith the Lord, thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you an expected end. That's in Joshua. Because that's what the Christ, that's what grace does. We have the thoughts that we need to have the good expected end, the expected good end. The thoughts are available. The thoughts are there. The thoughts are here in consciousness right now. And we only need to be available for them and listen to them. There's a busyness of the human mind that tends to shut out the Christ, that tends to shut out, like, oh no, I got this. It's that false ego again, trying to say, I know how to do this. Don't leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. I know I've got this path I'm going on. And we're so busy planning our future, planning our days. I mean, even if it's planning the next hour, we're so busy in our thinking that we're not pausing to hear the message that is telling us and gently guiding us, go this way. It's that, that line in the Bible about line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. That's the nature of the Christ message that's speaking to us. It's that constant, quiet nudging, just guiding gently. It's always a gentle thought. Well, every now and then, like the time that I was driving down Mulholland and that very curvy road in LA and heard, slow down. Sometimes it's not so gentle. Every now and then, it's a very loud, slow down. So I put on the brakes and I avoided a head-on collision with a truck, which was very nice. I was very grateful. But, so there are times when that divine message comes in a very forceful way. If it's an urgent need, the need is met. We do want to be practicing listening for that. when I was, again, driving on Mulholland. This time I was on a motorcycle, and I heard the thought, "You're going down." And that when you're on a motorcycle, that means you're, falling on the pavement. I thought, "No, I'm not." And I immediately corrected the thought. And then I thought, okay, well, if this was a thought that I need to be aware of, if this was an alert, what is it? And I just reviewed in my thought, what is kind of the normal thing to do if you are on a motorcycle and you do find yourself falling over for whatever reason? What would be the normal, good thing to do to stay safe? And I just sort of went over it in my thought, like, stay relaxed, don't, break too hard, blah, blah, blah. And on the way home that day, came up over a hill, came around a corner, and there was an SUV that was pulled out across the road right in front of me. And I had to stop very quickly. Well, most of you know the story. I went down and I slid across the pavement, across the line to the other side of the street. Didn't hit the SUV, slid across. There were cars coming, all of whom avoided me. There was actually somebody on the side of the road who started videotaping and had video of the whole thing. Slid across the road, and I stopped, and I got up and, moved my bike off the road and got out of the way and was absolutely fine. Well, the really interesting part of that story is that morning in the closet getting dressed, I had this thought, put on white jeans. I never wear white jeans. I own them, yes, but would I wear them to work normally? No, because I always feel a little bit uncomfortable. Anyway, I put on white jeans. When I got up off the pavement after having slid across the pavement, there was not a mark on my pants. Not a mark. When I saw what was happening and I knew that the bike was going out from under me and I was going down, I was in such a state of awareness of my safety and my life being in God. I knew that what was happening was not physical. What was happening was, oh, I am being held in love. I am being held in God. It was as though it never happened. I slid across the pavement, not a mark on my white jeans. And I just feel like that experience, because of the white jeans, that experience was like, oh, we can remain separate from what looks like this physical experience of things. My thought was just not in that. I was held with Christ in God. And with Christ in God in that moment was my thought was lifted above the physical experience of what was happening. And it wasn't where I was. It all worked out harmoniously. Everything was fine. There were a few suggestions. There were people who rushed around, of course, and wanted to call the ambulance, and you're in shock and you don't know what you're talking about. And no, I'm fine, I'm good. And I ended up riding home. And there were a few suggestions that, oh, well, is this hurting or that hurting? I was like, no. And immediately the pain or whatever the challenge was that was coming up, it was just gone. It was just a non-issue. So the thoughts that I think toward you are good and peaceful and give you an expected end. They're good and not evil, and they give you an expected end. So when you get a little thought that comes to you, like the angel thought that came to me that morning on the way to work, and I just kind of reviewed. So my body was doing what I was relaxed and everything was fine. And I didn't react to the scene, but I had been prepared to do that. I was protected. I was given what I needed without even knowing that I needed it. Before ye ask, right? You're given the answer. So the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. These thoughts that are coming line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, Just recognize that these thoughts, they're seeding goodness in your awareness, in your thinking, in your consciousness, that is the reflection of the divine mind. It's seeding goodness, so that's what's growing in thought. That's what's growing. The evil thoughts that come up, was going back to the story of the young man, he talked about, thoughts as a young adult, after he'd left the home and he'd sort of gotten out of that circumstance, thoughts, like really violent thoughts, would come to him. Like he'd be standing in the store and the thought, like, punch out the store clerk kind of thing, that kind of thought would come to him, violent thoughts. And he recognized that these are just thoughts that are coming up. They're not his thoughts. It's just the suggestion of mortal material sense that is kind of like the clouds floating in the sky, right? The suggestions are going to keep coming up. It's like you get to the point where you think, well, can I have an existence where none of that ever comes to thought? Well, mortal mind, the suggestion of mortal mind, I haven't gotten to the point where I've overcome even having the thoughts. Like, thoughts will still come up. You'll still be aware of negative stuff, but it's not your thinking. And that's the thing to know. It's not your thinking. You can observe it, you can see it, and you can immediately reject it. And as the young man said, what he says to those thoughts is, go to hell, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, go where you belong. You don't belong here. Go to the place where evil thoughts would go, because it's not your thinking, and it's certainly not godlike thoughts. So there's the line in Psalms where it says, when I said my foot slippeth, thy mercy, O Lord, held me up. Well, so if I have a thought that's negative, my foot slipped, thy mercy, God's love, holds us up and says, no, that's not you. That's a thought. That's not who you are. When there's some evidence that's against you that says you are something negative, I'm sick, God's love lifts you up and says, no, you're not sick. You're my child. You're whole and complete and well and pure and good and strong and flexible. You're all the good that I have given you and that I have created you to be. That thought that just came to you, that's not who you are. And you can send it to where it belongs. You can send it away. You can say no. And the grace that God has given us, that Christ balm, truth consciousness, is right there in that moment. When that negative thought comes up, the Christ is there, protecting you, guarding you, guiding you, helping you recognize that that's not who you are, helping you see clearly that that's a thought you can reject instantly. And it does get better and better, kind of the line upon line, precept upon precept. It does get better and better where you don't even spend time on the thought anymore. You go, oh yeah, I see you. And you just let it go. Deny it, let it go. Condemn it, let it go. It's like, it's not real. Identify it as nothing. Move along, little doggies. Nothing to see here, folks. Like, let it go. Don't grab onto it and wrestle with it and go, well, aren't you real? And don't you have power? And no power. And so that's the thing that you will notice as you study this more, as you get more, as you accept more of who you are. And that's really what it is. As you accept more of who you already are, it will impress you less. It's like, why stand aghast at nothingness, which is a phrase from Mrs. Eddy. It'll impress you less, and you'll just go, yeah, whatever. Okay, you're trying to get my attention. I'm not buying anymore. So there was something else I wanted to share. Hang on. Well, here's an interesting thing where the Bible talks about, if ye continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But the disciples know the truth. So as if you know the truth, you are a disciple, and if you're a disciple, you can know the truth. Like they're tied together. You'll know the word that is true. You'll know the thought that is true. Because you are here, I know that you have a heart for understanding and for seeing the truth. So you are a disciple. You have disciplined thought already, or you wouldn't be here. So in that knowing of the truth, in that seeking the truth, in your desire to have God-like thoughts, knowing the truth does set you free from the other stuff that tries to impress you, that tries to come up and tempt you and suggest that you are something other than who you are. And it works for your thoughts of others too. I mean, I always like to include, like, all of this, yes, we're talking about our own thinking and where is our thought and all of that, but it also works when those thoughts come up about other people. Because when negative thoughts come up about other people, it's the same suggestion. It's that same, like, get ye hence. It's those same kinds of thoughts that come up about you. It's the same clouds in the sky that you just go, yeah, I see you, go away. You don't have any power here. Like, these are not the droids you're looking for. Move along. Like, you're not going to impress me. Shania Twain has that song, "You Don't Impress Me Much." It's like, if you don't impress me much. So you can say that to mortal mind. You don't impress me. You can just move along. Move along. Ye shall know the truth. Ye shall know the truth. There's a promise there, right? Ye shall know the truth. So Mrs. Eddy says, for victory over a single sin, we give thanks and magnify the Lord of hosts. For victory over a single sin. Think of that, for victory over a single thought. For victory over a single thought that you have put down and put a negative thought that you have put in its place. That's a victory. We get to be better about claiming the victories when they happen. It could have been very easy for me in that little motorcycle incident to go, oh, well, it was just a coincidence. It's no big deal. But if I look at the intuitions that came to me and how it all stacks on itself, and how at the end of that experience, I could say, and I had on white jeans and there wasn't a mark on them when I slid across the pavement. Like, there's proof. Oh, and I have to circle back on something because I told you guys a story about the shuttle, and when I had that vision of being on the shuttle and that's the noise and not being able to get to my ears, and then the explosion happened and the noise stopped. The reason that was significant, because that vision happened the night of the accident. It wasn't until the next day that they discovered that what caused the explosion was the gas escaping. So in the vision was a little detail that made it very clear that this was not just a dream. There was a very specific detail that was kind of the big point of the vision. That was the piece of information that didn't get discovered until the next day. And that was the thing that made me feel like, oh, this wasn't just a dream of me kind of working it out humanly in my thought. This was a vision that was an answer from God that there is no death. And here's proof. And I'll even give you a little detail that, solves a problem for what they're trying to figure out. I didn't call anybody, but they might have thought it was whatever. So victory over a single sin. Take the victories, guys. Like when you overcome that temptation to go down a negative path and you say nope, and you have the strength and you let that grace be available to you, take the victory. Do a little victory dance. Take the victory lap. You can like throw the football down. Everybody should have a victory dance when we overcome sin. Wouldn't that be funny? Do you walk around all day, like do a little victory dance? People going, what are you doing? I just put down I put down a sinful thought. Sin, missing the mark, right? Missing the mark of who you are. Okay, let's bring it in. Okay, the wonderful thing about grace is you don't have to effort it. This is available just 'cause. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to effort it. You don't have to try to go find it. It's available. It's already present and all present and always present and always available. And you can just take a breath and just yield to the Christ. Just yield to the grace that has been given you. Just let it be. And let it support you. Let it be present in your thought. Okay, lots of love, you guys. Those of you visiting, welcome. Thank you for being here. If you're interested in this and you like this, feel free to join us next month. Okay, lots of love, you guys.
Thank you.